Hello and welcome to the saxophone warm-up class. This is a chance for all saxophones, alto saxophone, soprano saxophone, bass saxophone, tenor saxophone, and any other saxophone players to get a good quality warm-up. This is geared more for beginners to intermediates and even early advanced players. So if you are the best one of the best saxophonists in the world, then maybe you don't need this. But this is just geared for a good quality warm up for saxophone players, so that we can get a good quality warm up before we go into the practice room and start practicing our sheet music or our etudes or literature or anything like that. So I've got a couple of different ideas for us to think about as we go throughout this warm-up video. Please feel free to get out your saxophone and follow along with me. Full disclaimer, I am not a professional saxophone player, but I am a music teacher and a music educator in the state of Oregon, and so I've taken several classes on, saxophone technique and how to best get the best saxophone sound with the equipment that I have. I do not have professional equipment, but I do feel like I have pretty decent equipment. In that case, we're going to get started with some breathing exercises. Breathing is the number one most important thing for wind players, woodwinds and brass wind players to understand and be able to do correctly before even playing the instrument. So we're going to do a couple different breathing exercises with my metronome here. So feel free to do these along with me as we're going along. First, we're going to breathe in for 4 beats and then out for 4 beats, and then we're going to move it to in for 2 beats and out for 6 beats. And then we're going to move it on to in for 1 beat and then out for 8 beats. And we're going to do each of these 4 times. When we breathe in, I usually like to have a hand right here in the middle of my face in an O shape. So that way we get the most air in possible, and so that we have a gauge as to whether we're breathing correctly. If we're not breathing correctly, we should hear this kind of sound. That's if our mouth is closed like that. If our mouth is open when we breathe, we should hear a low sound or barely any sound. Making sure that our shoulders stay relaxed while we breathe. We want to breathe down into our lungs and down more to the bottom of our lung capacity. When we breathe out, I usually like to hold my hand out in front of my face like this, so that I'm pinpointing my airstream right into the center of my hand here. So whenever we breathe in, we're going to hold our hands like this. Whenever we breathe out, we're going to hold our hand out in front of our face like this. We don't want it too close to our face like this. We want it about, not too far away, but not too close either, so that we can feel the air hitting our hand. All right, here we go. Metronome is at 80 beats a minute. We're going to start by breathing in for 4 and out for 4. Ready, set, go. One more time. Breathing in for 2, out for 6. Make sure your air stays steady. Full breath in. Full breath out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. One more time. In for 1, out for 8. Keep your air steady. 6, 7, 8. One more time. Whenever we do these breathing exercises, you always want to make sure that you're being consistent while you're breathing. If you run out of air too quickly, then you're not pacing yourself well enough. If you have a bunch of air left over at the end of the breathing exercise, then you need to make sure that you're using more air throughout the exercise. If you're feeling lightheaded or dizzy, make sure to feel free to put your head in between your legs or in between your knees If you are standing and you feel lightheaded or dizzy, please sit down. We don't want to have you standing and have you pass out and fall on the floor. You can get injured that way. So if you feel dizzy while you're standing up doing this, feel free to make sure to sit down and again put your head in between your knees to regain consciousness and get the blood rushing to your head, which helps out to regain kind of a sense of normalcy. Again, these are not the only breathing exercises that you have to do. You can change up the counts that you do. You can make it more vigorous breathing exercises. Whatever works for you, you can always switch it up. I would always recommend that so that you don't basically get bored doing breathing exercises. We should always be engaged when we're doing breathing exercises. Okay, now we're going to take those breathing exercises and apply it to long tones. I've got my saxophone here. And again, full disclaimer, I am not a professional saxophone player, but I do know how to create the best sound possible for me and the equipment I have. So please feel free to get out your saxophone. Feel free to pause this video so that you can get it out. I've got my reed on here ready to go. So feel free to pause this video and then get your saxophone out so that we can get started with our long tones. Now what we're going to do is play our long tones. We're going to start actually on a first line G, or second line G with first 3 fingers down, no register key, no bottom hand for right now, and we're going to work our way up until we get to G on top of the staff. Again, we want our air to be super smooth as we do this, and how we're going to do this is we're going to breathe in for 4 counts and then play a long tone on G for 8 counts, and trying to make sure our air stays consistent. Okay, and then after G, we're going to move up the scale to A, then to B, then to C, then to D with all our fingers, no pinkies and register key. Then we're going to move to E, then F sharp, that's second finger in the right hand, and then back up to G with our register key. Again, we want to make sure that our air stays consistent and steady the whole time. I've got my metronome onto the same 80 beats a minute. Breathe in for 4 and then out for 8. We're going to do each note twice. I recommend holding your saxophone out in front of you, not holding it to the side like this. If you're a jazz musician, sometimes people do that, but most people recommend holding it out in front of you so that your head stays in a level position. Okay? Here we go. Breathing in for 4. 1, 2, sit up tall, breathe in. Again, breathe, breathe. Move up to A, ready, set, go. Again, 2, breathe. Move up to the next note, ready, B. Again, breathe, breathe, steady air. Move on to C, second finger. Keep a steady stream of air, steady tone. Move up to D, all fingers, register key. Steady stream of air, big breath. Move up to E. Make sure to tap your foot to keep the beat. F sharp, second finger in the right hand. Firm corners, flat chin. Moving up to G, register key, first 3 fingers. And we're finished with our long tone exercises. Oops. Again, these are not the only long tones that you have to play. You can also work on low tones. You can also work on the palm notes that utilize the palm key or any of the low-fingered notes, any of the register key notes, or any of the notes that require the pinky keys to work on the lower register or even the higher register. Or even, if you're an advanced player, feel free to practice your altissimo register with these long tones. It really helps to keep the air steady and to make sure that you're tracking your progress on the long tones and making sure that they stay in tune. I've got an app that I'll kind of let you know what I use at the end of this video so that you can, if you want to, download it to your phone or iPad or whatever you're using. Okay? Next, what I'd like to do is an extended long tone exercise, which is basically register key jumps or octave jumps on the saxophone. So there's certain notes on the saxophone, for those of you that aren't familiar, there's certain notes on the saxophone that we can play with the same fingers in front of us. All we have to do is switch that register key on and off to change the octave, or 8 notes apart from the note. So I've got a little diagram for you that you can kind of check out and look at. Feel free to pause this video so that you can either copy it down on a piece of paper, a notebook, or screenshot it with your computer or with your phone. So I'll leave this up for you. We're going to be doing these several notes on here. So here's what they are. I'm going to get it on the screen ready for you. So again, these are not the only notes on the saxophone that utilize this technique, but these are some of the most common ones. Oh, sorry about that. I just realized that I've got the the clarinet one. My apologies. That would look very strange. Here, I got this one ready for us. Okay, this is the right one. Okay, and again, these are some of the most common notes, not only just the familiar ones. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to play each of these notes for 4 beats long. 4 beats long. What we're going to do is we're going to play the low octave first, and then all we have to do is engage that register key to have the note jump up. What we want to focus on is we want to focus on smooth, steady air while we're playing this, and working on our breath support and keeping our embouchure, which is our face muscles and musculature in our face, firm and engaged so that we don't get a wonky octave when we jump up to the octave. Okay, we're first going to start off with low D, which is our first 3 fingers in our left hand and our first 3 fingers in our right hand. We're going to play low D for 4 beats, and then we're just going to push the register key to slur up to the octave. It's going to sound something like this. Again, notice how I'm using steady air so that the transition from the low octave to the high octave is not broken up. There's no break in the sound. We're going to keep our metronome at this a little slower speed instead of the same, so we can focus on beauty and consistency of tone, and also just enacting that register key at the correct time. So again, we're going to hold the low octave for 4 counts, and then we're going to move the register key and enable the register key and hold the top octave for 4 beats as well. Okay, we're going to repeat each of these twice and then move on to the next note. So we're going to start on D, and then we're going to move to E, and then F, and then F sharp, and so on and so forth. I'll give you a hint, a preface where we're going to be going beforehand. Here we go. We're at 72 beats a minute on the metronome, starting on low D. Low D. 1, 2, breathe. Again, 2, ready, go. Moving on to E, first 2 fingers in the right hand, all fingers down in the left hand. Ready, go. Again, 2, ready, go. Moving on to F, first finger in the right hand, all the fingers down except for the pinky down in the left hand. 1, 2, ready. Again, steady air the whole time. Move to F sharp, that's second finger down now in the right hand. 1, 2, ready, go. Again, 2, firm embouchure, go. Move on to G, no fingers down in the right hand, all the fingers down, no pinky in the left hand. And 1, 2, ready. Again, 2, ready, go. Now we move up to A, lift up that ring finger in the left hand. 2, ready, go. Again, 2, ready, go. Now moving up to B, first finger in the left hand. 2, ready, go. Smooth airstream, firm corners. Last one, C, second finger in the left hand. 1, 2, ready. Again, 2, ready, go. Okay, and that concludes our portion of the registered jumps or the octave jumps. Whenever you're doing these, you always want to make sure that you're 1, using a metronome, and probably 2, using a tuner, because if you're an advanced or even an intermediate player, we always want to make sure that we're trying our best to play in tune, so that all of our notes are in the correct pitch and moving in the correct time. That's why we use the metronome and the tuner. So that was our register key jumps. Next we're going to move on to scales. A quick thing before we move on to our scales. These are only certain examples of what you could do in your warm-up. We could always use long tones and use some articulation or use our tongue while we're utilizing these long tones. So if I was playing a long tone, I could instead use my tongue a little bit to start the notes and stop the notes. So maybe 4 long tenuto quarter notes could be an example. Making sure that our tongue hits the tip of the reed and the tip of our tongue hits the tip of the reed. And you could switch to 8th notes, or if you're an advanced player, doing 16th note patterns, or even maybe some triplet patterns or things like that. Again, that's just another way for you to stay active and stay, I guess, engaged in the warm-up. Sometimes we think of warm-up as just kind of a routine rather than a learning. So we always want to make sure that we're staying engaged in our warm-up. Anyways, moving on, we'll go to our scales. I've got 4 scales here for us. Again, if you're an advanced player, you can utilize more than these 4 scales. Please do. You should be able to hopefully know all your 12 major scales, and you can even learn all 3 types of your minor scales. That would be a super beneficial thing for you to practice in your practice time. For right now, we've just got 4 scales. I'm going to leave them up on the screen for you so that you can take, again, a screenshot or pause the video to write down these scales for you. Again, these are kind of more beginner and intermediate scales. Feel free to utilize your own scales as you see fit. So here are the scales. Let me get it focused on the screen here for you so that you can see everything. I'll leave it up for a couple moments so that you can take a screenshot or write these down or pause the video. Okay, so as you can see, we've got a couple of different scales. What we're going to do is I will guide you through them if you're a beginner. If you're an intermediate, then these should be okay for you. I will guide you through as we learn some different notes that you're not familiar with. I'll help you along with those. Our first one is our G scale, and we're going to move the metronome back up to 80 beats a minute. Again, we're focusing on steadiness of air, but also making the most beautiful sound possible with engaging our corners and making sure that obviously our reed is in the right spot and making sure that we sound our best possible. Okay, so we're going to start with our G scale. We're going to play each note of the G scale in half notes, and then we're not going to repeat the top note. We're just going to come all the way back down. For the sake of this video, we're only going to do each scale once. Basically so that, if you need to, you can repeat the video, or you can rewind the video so that you can play these scales. I recommend playing these scales at least 2, if not 3 times per scale, so that you really get good repetition with each scale. And again, for each scale, you can do different articulation patterns and things like that. Okay, here we go, our G scale. Just for our beginners that need some help with the notes, we start on G right here, no register key, then move up to A, then B, then C, then D with all our fingers down, no pinkies, and our register key in the back, then E, then F sharp, and then back to G, and we've got our scale, and then we'll come back down. Okay, here we go, our metronome's set to 80 beats a minute. G scale. Here we go. And 1, 2, ready. Again, that was our G scale. Feel free to replay the video so that you can practice it a little bit more. Just one thing to remind yourself, when you go from notes that don't use a lot of keys and no register key to notes that use a lot of keys and register key, make sure that you're using strong air through the notes that use a lot of fingers and register key, because they have your air has a lot more space to travel. It has to travel all the way down to the bottom of the saxophone when you're using all these keys. So make sure that you're blowing strong air when you go from one finger like C to a bunch of fingers like D and the register key. Anyways, we're going to keep moving on. Next scale is going to be our F scale, which is where we're going to start on F here with our first finger, not our second finger. We're going to start on F with our first finger. One note that you want to pay attention to here is our B flat. For those of you that don't know the fingering for B flat, there's a couple different ways you can do it. For this scale, the one that's going to work the best will be our B flat using our A keys, 1 and 2, A keys, and then you use this bottom side key here, this bottom right-hand side key for you. Okay? That's how we're going to play B flat. You can also play B flat like B and with this tiny key that we don't use as often. But again, for the purpose of this scale, it's going to be best to use A with that side key here, the bottom one. Okay, here we go, F scale. Make sure to tap your foot, sit up tall. Make sure your embouchure is firm. Make sure your tongue is high in your mouth and not low in your mouth. And 1, 2, F scale. Again, we want smooth and steady air the whole time, especially when moving from less keys to a bunch of keys and register key. I haven't tuned this saxophone this morning, so if you think it's out of tune, it probably is. So don't worry about it. We're just kind of warming up, and we will tune after our warm-up. Okay, our next scale is our D scale. Our D scale is going to start this time on low D. Advanced saxophonists, feel free to start on D above the staff. That's totally fine. We're going to start on low D with all our fingers, no pinkies down. We'll go D, E, F sharp this time, G, A, B, and when we get to C, it's actually going to be C sharp for the beginners and intermediate players. It's going to be C sharp. C sharp is one of the easier notes on saxophone to play because it doesn't require any keys. You can obviously use, for your advanced players, you can use venting keys, which is for our beginner and intermediate students. We'll talk about that later, but if you want to use venting keys, that's totally fine. But for C sharp, we don't use any keys, or we don't use the register key unless we're playing the higher octave. So no fingers for C sharp, and then when we go back to D, it's all our fingers, no pinkies, and register key in the back. Here's our D scale. 1, 2, ready, go. Again, you'll probably notice on the video it looks like I might be pushing down keys, but I'm actually not. I'm just keeping my fingers close to the keys and hovering over the keys so that I can get the best technique possible. When you play these scales faster, you're going to want to make sure that your hands and fingers and pinkies and everything stay close to the keys so that you're able to have greater, what they call facility, greater ease of playing all these scales. Okay? Our final scale is going to be our C scale. C scale is actually all natural notes. It's just C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and back to C. When we get to F, remember for our beginners, when we get to F, it's going to be F natural, this first finger. We're not going to play F sharp this time. We're going to play F natural. So make sure that you play your regular F with that first finger in your right hand. Okay, we're going to start on C in the middle of the staff and do this up to C above the staff. So we're going to use our register key C like we did in the octave jumps. Okay, if you want to play the low C scale, that's perfectly fine. If you're, it's not really an advanced scale, but it's more difficult for some of our beginners to get down there. But if you are able to play the low C scale, feel free to start on that note. Here we go. Here's our C scale. 1, 2, ready, go. And that's our C scale. Again, feel free to replay the video, this part of the video, if you want to practice that a couple more times. Feel free. If that is a little bit too hard for you, you can always press the YouTube option. You can always change the speed of the video so you can practice it a little bit slower or a little bit faster if you want to. So that was our scales portion, and this is the bulk of our warm-up video. What I want you to recommend you to do is this. This doesn't only have to be your only warm-up. You can choose other different options. Again, like I said, you can change up the articulations of the scale. So you can maybe do some 16th note patterns, like a 8th note and 2 16th notes afterwards. Something like that, or switch it up to where you're challenging yourself and you're staying engaged. Again, this is not the only things that you need to do for your warm-up. Feel free to change your warm-up as you see fit. We always want to, again, stay engaged in the warm-up process. For right now, feel free to take a little bit of a break before you go and practice your sheet music or your band book if you have it. For my students, we use Essential Elements. But whatever band book that you use, feel free to take a break first, maybe about 15 minutes to rest your embouchure and rest your face muscles and things like that. Or you can, rest for a little bit and then go to your etudes if you have etudes and private lessons and things like that. Really quick before we leave, I want to remind you of a couple great resources that we have that I'll leave down in the description below. our Timber Ridge Music's website, which is basically our music program website through my school, has a bunch of great resources for saxophones. It has scales, it has scale sheets and different videos of saxophone players that you want to listen to and you want to check out and kind of emulate as you learn to make a great saxophone sound. So go and check in the description below for those. Click on the resources tab up at the top of the site and then go to alto saxophone, which basically is all the saxophones on one page. Also, I'd like to recommend to you a couple apps that I like to use. This one that I've been using so far with the metronome is called TE Tuner. It looks something like this. When you download it, it's going to look like this. It's over here on the left-hand side. It looks like that. It's TE Tuner. It's really beneficial, and it's I believe it's only about $2 or something like that. But it's a really great option for you to not only have a metronome, but also have a tuner on it so that you can help yourself out and play in tune constantly. And it also has some drone sound drone options so that you can listen to sounds and try and match those sounds. Another app that I've really liked so far that I've kind of found out is this app called PlayTunes. It's this one down here. It has kind of a fancy eighth note symbol. PlayTunes is basically for beginners and intermediate students that are interested in having something to practice. So basically, this is the opening screen here, and if you hit play, then it comes to different levels and different days that you can practice different things. So I highly recommend using that app if you're a beginner or an intermediate player. It shows you if you're playing the correct notes and if you're playing them in time and things like that. It's almost like a smart music app, but for the iPhone or for the Android. So I definitely recommend that one. Finally, another app that I really enjoy is this one called Bandmate Chromatic Tuner. It's right here. It's this quarter note one on the staff. Basically, it's like Classmate, but Bandmate. If you click on this one, it'll bring you to this open screen, and it has a tuner down below, and it actually shows you if you're playing the correct notes. Obviously, I have it on clarinet here, so you would just have to choose saxophone. I don't know if you can see it or not, but I would choose alto saxophone. They also have bari saxophone or tenor saxophone. So there's that option for you. You would have to switch this flat symbol to a sharp symbol if you wanted to play sharp notes and things like that. And it's cool because it registers, even as I'm talking, it registers what notes you would be playing on the alto saxophone or tenor saxophone or bari saxophone and vice versa. So I would definitely recommend that one. That one again is Bandmate Chromatic Tuner. I'll put some information in the description below. If you have any other apps that you like to use in your practice, feel free to write down in the comments section. If you also have any questions about what we've just done and if I missed explaining something, please feel free to leave a comment down below and I'll try and answer it as quickly as I can. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a like and subscribe to our channel for more information on these warm-up videos and also instrument maintenance videos and other videos that will be helpful to you not only as a student but possibly as a teacher as well. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to give me a comment and go have fun practicing and hope you're well, and we'll catch you on the next video.